Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, your home for all content Marvel Mystic Mayhem. Today's video is going to be a tier list ranking video. It has basically been 1 month, maybe a little bit more, since global launch. We now have 30 characters in the game. I want to do a tier list making video. The criterion for this tier list are what are the best characters, and I'm leaving it that kind of purposefully vague. I will tell you that I brought all of the characters up to level 70, put purple artifacts on them, put a highlight on them that was relatively leveled all their skills to 6 out of 7, and then took them through a bunch of different modes. But my concern was mostly with Nightfall, and then what I think their kind of strength would be, what mode that would be. So I tested all of the 30 characters and then wrote some notes down, and now we're going to order them. Before we get started, though, I'm going to have either in the description or in the pinned comment, I'll basically have a link to this tier maker, and the voting will be open for a week. But the way it's going to work is you're going to be able to go to this tier maker and then sort of rank things the way you want to, or vote on how it was ranked. And we'll sort of come to a community census about where we think different heroes are, in this game. So with that, let's get started, and I'm probably just going to fill out the S row to start. And for me, the best character currently in the game is Captain America. He is just a mana battery. He makes every team better. He basically works with everybody. He's got a taunt. He can direct your heroes to, go after somebody. He can give survivability. He can give offense. And his ultimate comes up so quick. He's my favorite character to play in the game right now. He is that good. And then right after him, I think I want to do Iron Man and Scarlet Witch. And maybe you could argue that Scarlet Witch could go ahead of Iron Man. It really depends. I'm not going to be super picky about the ordering within a row. Except, people at the higher... Over here is definitely the best, and over here is definitely the worst. But, within the row, I'm not going to be super clinical about it. But these are two of the best damage dealers in the game. And I really enjoy playing both of them. If you set them up right, they're just the best. But right after that, I actually think Thor is going to be a big shout here. When you set him up with attack speed, he just clears through everything. So my Thor, he doesn't have like a whole lot of attack, like base level attack, but because his attack speed gets so juiced, and he's got a little bit of crit damage and crit rate, he's a machine. And he can take things down pretty quickly. I'm a big fan of him in Nightfall and pretty much every other mode. He's one of my staple characters as well. Okay. I'm going to do Doctor Strange next, and then Juggernaut. And we're going to put Emma Frost at the bottom of S tier here. But I think this is where I want to round out my S tier. It's actually quite a few, but I think that these are all very good characters here. Yeah, I think that's what I do. Jugs is... I think he has the potential to continue to be a really good tank. He's not as good of a tank as Captain America, but in terms of his raw damage output capability, it's going to skyrocket, and this is going to get even better when you put the Psylock's gem on him that's coming. That's the unique artifact that's coming from the Crimson campaign. That gives you, maybe it's like going to be like 30 or 40% boost on HP. And you pair that with the glove, which gives another 10% boost and another, it's just HP on HP on HP. He is going to be a machine that you're not going to be able to kill, and is going to one-shot everybody. So that's why I've kind of put him up here. Doctor Strange, basically the best controller in the game, in my opinion. And he's only going to get better as you get more duplicates of him and as the game goes on. The ability for you to control and like choose what happens next with each of his 3 buffs that you can get is really, really nice. It allows flexibility. Doctor Strange was my first choice for a while, first place character, best in the game, and he's kind of moved down. I don't use him as much now, and I'm relying more on Captain America. I will say, because Captain America and Doctor Strange have a little bit more complex kits, when you are doing something like Bifrost Brawl, where the AI has to make sort of game time decisions, it's pretty bad at that. So in modes like that, they actually can suffer a little bit. I would say Doctor Strange especially suffers. Captain America can still do decently, but you want somebody who the AI I can't mess up, and that's going to be somebody like Juggernaut here. I am controversially maybe putting Emma Frost, though, at the bottom of S tier. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think her heal is okay. I think she will get better in the future when you get more duplicates of her. But one ding against her for me is that she only works with special damage. And I think a lot of these characters can basically work on any team, and they're just going to do really well. And so I think that that's a little bit of a ding on her, but I think she also can kind of overcome that ding to go up into S tier. Okay, let's talk about A tier. And the first thing I want to do is basically put all of Fantastic Four minus the Human Torch in A tier. I think I'm going to put him in B tier. All right, I'm putting all the Fantastic Four in A tier and below because they really want you to put Fantastic Four together as a cookie cutter team, and I think that disqualifies them for me in my mind from being S tier. You can't just slot them into any team and automatically make that team better. That being said, when you do put them together, they can be pretty formidable. I'm going to have additional videos coming out about whether you should be spending keys on Mr. Fantastic and whether you should be leveling up Thing. Here's a spoiler. I think Thing might be one of the better free-to-play tanks right now. He's also just fun to play, especially with his ultimate. Seeing that, kind of knock people around is pretty crazy. And when you pair him with, the rest of the Fantastic Four, I think I can get like 60% damage down on each hand in the current Nightmare version of the Eye of Nightmare, which is crazy for, a defender like that. Okay. I don't know whether Mr. Fantastic is better than Invisible Woman. I think I'm going to give Mr. Fantastic the edge here. I said I wasn't going to be picky about the ordering within rows, but I am being picky a little bit. And the reason I'm going to give Mr. Fantastic the edge is I think he can do a little bit more damage output. And I like that. The survivability aspect that Invisible Woman gives, I'm not too... doesn't impress me like a whole lot at the moment. I will note that her debuff, though, that makes an enemy more vulnerable to ultimate damage, I think works better than his infinity formula that boosts ultimate damage. But I think I'm still going to give the edge to Mr. Fantastic. I like his kit. I like the gameplay mechanics. I think they're unique and interesting, and then combined with the Thing, they're just, a fun team to play. Okay. Let me explain why I put Human Torch in B. And it's mainly because of his 4 mana attack. It doesn't do like an initial burst of damage, and it doesn't put burn on people right away. And I don't like that. I think he needs to have like Invisible Woman and Mr. Fantastic on his team, and then he becomes an ult machine. I get there's a real possibility that I'm just not playing him right, but I really think basically a lot of the other characters above him in this list that will end up being above him in this list kind of just work better than him. Now, does that mean that the best Fantastic Four 3 team is these 3 right here? I don't know. It really probably depends on what you're trying to do. But for me, Human Torch is kind of in the B tier. All right. Let's talk about Spider-Man. I think he got bad rap for basically being... People thought he was sort of the worst natural 3-star that you could get. I'm not convinced that that's the case here, but I am going to put him in B, and maybe I'll put him ahead of Human Torch here. I don't think he's that good, and the reason for that is that a lot of his... What I don't like about him, I guess, is that his move that you need to that reduces like mana for your team, it needs to land next to them. And if your team is moving around, or you have somebody who's up front and somebody who's out, staying behind to do range damage, then that means you automatically sort of lose out on the ability to reach those people. At least with Captain America's like magic circle buff, I can almost always fit all of my characters into that buff. Even if, I'm split between like another fighter and some sort of ranged striker or something like that. He doesn't have that. He has pretty good damage output, and I like the idea, but, of him doing some sort of follow-up attack. I think he probably also needs his highlight, though, And I'm not remembering exactly what the highlight special effect for Spider-Man does, but I remember looking into it and thought, okay, well, this probably makes him pretty good. But right now, I'm gonna put him as B. That being said, I don't think he's the worst. I think the worst natural 3-star at the moment might be Moon Girl and Devil Dino, which is unfortunate because in closed beta, this is like the first natural 3-star that I got, and I used her for a lot. And I don't think she's bad. I just don't think she scales very well, especially into the end game. And so it might end up seeming like sort of a waste. The other side of that is, the summon teams, the summon-based characters, so her and Thread and who else? And Man-Thing, that it just doesn't work. And so while that's the case, I think she's going to stay here in sort of B tier because I think her kit really relies on building up some sort of summon-based team. And I don't know. I wish she was better, but she's not. She just doesn't scale very well into the end game. Okay, let's talk about armor because I think if you are a free-to-play player, you now have the thing and you likely have armor. And I think between these two here, these are probably the two best free-to-play centered tanks. I think they're definitely better than Hulk, who is not as good. Armor and Thing. Armor has like really good damage output that scales pretty well. She has great survivability. She has a taunt. She has a stun. I am going to give the edge to Thing here. And a part of that is, again, the fun factor. He also has a stun. He also has a taunt. And I just really like his ultimate. So they kind of do similar things. And I think Thing sort of barely wins there. But armor is really good. So if you want to invest in armor, I really don't think that that is a bad investment at all. All right, let's put this first character that I want to put down in the D tier here. That's Black Knight. I read his kit, and I like the idea of his kit. It's just the difference between how the kit reads and how it works in battle is vast. It is a huge difference, I would say. He's so slow to get going. And then it feels like his kit is basically just centered around him. And he's not doing much to sort of help your team out. And normally that's okay if you can compensate with like damage or something, but he doesn't really get that going either. He's so slow to start. And with so much of this game based around doing things fast, completing stages fast, completing boss fights fast, he's just not up to snuff. He is not good, which is unfortunate because, again, like I said, he is a really fun kit-wise character to like read about. It gets you excited. Got me excited when I was reading his kit. I was like, this is interesting. Okay, he's got this revive. He doesn't have ultimate energy. It's based off his basic attack. But even when you spec into like massive attack speed boost to him, he doesn't get moving that fast. He's super slow. He's slow Knight, if you ask me. Okay. Going back a little bit to our tank discussion, though, I want to talk a little bit about Sentry. I would say Sentry is a sort of a different defender than Thing and Armor, where I would say these two are a lot more defense focused, right? They are going to do a lot more tanking. I think Sentry is almost like Juggernaut in a sense, where he's more focused on damage output. So Sentry is a really great option if you kind of want... He's sort of more of a fighter than a true defender, if that makes sense. But he has a fun kit. I feel like he's like a better version of Black Knight. I mean, they're completely different in a sense, but like I like the way his kit reads too, where he's got this sort of extra resource that you have to build up, and you kind of have to control that, and it's not too bad, and he scales super well. I'm a big fan of him. But I am going to put him beneath these two just because I think Juggernaut is the kind of a better version of this, but, as a defender role, he's worse than Captain America, and I'm going to do the same here as well. Okay, I'm going to add somebody else to the D tier here, and I think what I want to do is add Man-Thing. Man-Thing pisses me off. He's just not good. I know people use him for Memento because he's got a lot of sustain and he can solo stuff, but you can use Sentry for that too, and that would be a much better option, to be honest with you. his summons get out so slow and they're so weak, and his ultimate goes like 2 feet before he trips over himself. I don't know how his ultimate kind of reminds me of like a Ghost Rider ultimate, right? Where he's got these trail of flames that come out after him, but he's not going that fast. He's not going nearly fast enough to get those flames. And he goes so short. And I just don't like him. I think he heals fine. Who cares? He pisses me off. I don't like him like at all. Okay. Let's move on to Sleepwalker here. I think he's kind of mid. He's not great. I think early on, if you need the extra heals and sustain, then he works. But kind of what I'm learning in this game, I mean, the best healer is Doctor Strange, and I feel like I don't really use him for his healing capabilities as much as I'm using him for his flexibility and ultimate energy regen and all that other thing. So he's got a buff to, yeah, he's basically C tier. Okay, let's talk about Storm. I actually think I'm going to put Storm at the top of A tier here. And the reason I'm going to do that is I think she actually does pretty well. I know a lot of people complain about her damage output, but I think once you get sort of the right highlights and artifacts on her, she actually can be sort of a machine. She works really well with other debuff-focused heroes. And importantly, everybody got her for free. And I think as an AoE hero that is accessible to free-to-play, I think she's pretty decent and like worth leveling up if you need to. I think she's pretty good. So I'm gonna put her there. Hulk. I'm gonna put Hulk in C tier. He's just not. He's a tank that doesn't really help his team out that much. He's like another one of these like solo characters, which maybe if they add a mode where you play one character, sure, which maybe that's what they're planning on with this solo mode, whatever it's called, but he's not that great in my opinion. Maybe that's a vibe ranking there, but that's fine. Oh, let's talk about Dream Queen really quick. I kind of want to put Dream Queen even still. I think I want to put Dream Queen higher up in the A ranks here. And so the patch, if you aren't aware, the patch basically yesterday nerfed her, and it was sort of a stealth nerf. I mean, they aren't very communicative anyway, but basically her ultimate text did not have this in it, but it was happening anyway. So she would, on ultimate, provide 3 mana back. It wasn't in the ultimate text, but then yesterday in the patch, they basically removed it and didn't say anything that they fixed that bug or whatnot. So people are a little bit upset about that because she was a bit of a mana battery. Before that, I still think she actually does some pretty good mana regeneration. And one of the things I like to do, I was sort of skeptical about her ultimate because it just wipes out all of your skills, right? And then resets them. And I was like, that seems not useful. But once I started playing, with her, I found that what I would like to do is basically use all the skills that I thought were valuable. So I'll give you an example. I'm playing with Scarlet Witch and Dream Queen. Scarlet Witch has her 3 mana attack up. I use Scarlet Witch's 3 mana attack. Then I use Dream Queen's ultimate. It wipes it out. And often what I was finding was that skills I just used would come back and populate again. And so I could basically use the 3 mana attack back to back if I had the mana for it. And it does a lot of damage and very powerful. I still think even after this stealth nerf, though, that she is probably one of the better or best free-to-play supports that there is. She's pretty good. I don't think it's a waste of resources to give her any of those resources. I think also if there's a shield meta in the future, she is primed to basically take that down. So big fan of her, even after the sort of stealth nerf. Let's talk about Angela. Where do I want to put Angela? I think I might want to put her here, but maybe I'll put her here. I really wanted to like Angela because I really like the ability that she has where she can sort of pull everybody in. I just don't feel like she does enough. She's kind of like in the same vein of defenders as Thing and Armor, but she just doesn't put out enough damage to compensate. So, yeah, she's just not good. Maybe in the right team, she'll be really good. Like in the future, they're, you know, we're gonna have some Asgardians coming out in the next sort of theme, so maybe that'll work there. But I'm just not convinced right now that she's very good. Okay, let's do Ekko. Ekko for me is probably going to go to top of A tier. I made a video about Ekko, especially when you pair her with an already high attack character like Iron Man, Scarlet Witch, because she copies it. And then even when they get buffs, she copies their new attack, basically. And so you end up with like a 2-for-1 sort of attack, really high attack characters. I really like that about her because then you can load her up with crit rate and crit damage, and she basically is going to end up critting all the time on an already high attack. She's got decent mobility. The one ding against her is her survivability a little bit, but I think you can kind of get some stats on your artifacts to deal with that. And if you have like a third, like Captain America, or some sort of sustain on your third character being provided by your third character, I think she's really, really good. So I'm a big fan of Ekko, and I continue to use her actually a pretty decent amount. Okay, let's talk about Thread. I'm going to put him in B tier. And I started messing around with Thread. I did it originally when launch sort of happened, because I was like, oh, there's going to be a summon team. It's going to be good. I'll use him with, you know, Moon Girl and with Man Thing, and we'll have a cool summon team. And summon teams work in Game of Khonshu, but they do not work in any other game mode. But when you put some resources into Thread, he can kind of shred. The thread that shreds is what they call him. And if the thing he struggles with is basically getting his summons out early, though, and making sure that he can build those summons up pretty quickly. That's where he's lacking. But once they get out on the field, even if they're not all out on the field, he can actually hit pretty hard. So he is not the weakest link in the summons team. It is absolutely Man Thing. So if we get another third good summoner, then maybe this team becomes a little bit more viable here. But I'm actually kind of a big fan of Thread. But he's going to go at the bottom of B tier here. B tier here. Okay, let's talk about Psylock. I think Psylock is very good. One of the best free-to-play accessible single target damage characters. Ooh, I might even put her up. You know what? I think I am. I think I'm going to put her after Dream Queen. Her mobility is insane. She's great survivability because of her dodge, which makes her actually pretty decent in PvP as well. She can just hop all over the place. Her follow-up attacks are nutty. She scales pretty well. I think she'll start to maybe fall off a little bit, especially if we get any sort of level increases in the future. Maybe we'll see. But right now, I really like her. All right, we're kind of on the home stretch here, and we don't have that many good characters left. Doppelganger is another one that I really liked. I used him a lot in closed beta, and I just liked his kit and his survivability. I wasn't even running a tank or a healer, basically. I was doing 3 DPS and then relying on the survivability of Doppelganger with his dodge mechanic. And that took me really far in closed beta, actually. But he's not good. He does not scale that well. His attack speed stuff is fine, but it really falls off in endgame, and he just doesn't have enough versatility to kind of overcome that. Moon Knight was somebody I hadn't really played until I decided to start doing some work for this video, and I kind of like him. He's got the survivability. I really like his buff that buffs attack speed by like 60 or 70% or something like that. That's insane. Especially, I was basically using him with Thor and Captain America, and they could just be right there together and basically boost the attack speed. Thor starts going crazy. Moon Knight starts going crazy. I do think there are some things that make him not great, which is that, again, his buffs require him to be right next to people, kind of like Spider-Man. And that limits sort of the team compositions I think he can be good on. The other thing is that his passive, where he basically can reduce the mana of his skills, which are already pretty low mana to begin with, to be honest with you. But that takes like 23 seconds or something like that. And that's just too long. His ultimate is also 400 energy. And that's just too much in my opinion. So he's just kind of gated by like the current values on his kit in terms of ultimate energy and his passive and maybe some other things too. I think his damage is okay though. And I like putting him on an attack speed based team. That was fun, but he's going to stay in B tier for now. Okay, Misty Knight. You know what? I'm actually going to put Misty Knight right here in B tier. And the reason I'm going to do that is because she works really well with a debuff centered team. So what I was doing was I was putting her with Thor and Storm, and she's not quite a single target damage character. She's also not quite an AoE character in the sense of like Storm and Thor. And she's somewhere in the middle there, but very cool sort of mix. Her damage can go crazy, especially when you get her attack speed up. I started putting a lot of crit on her as well because she's got some passives that basically boost her crit on certain attacks whenever she like reloads her next basic attack. Can be a crit or hit pretty hard. So I think she's solidly in B tier. I think if you've put some resources into her, definitely somebody you could continue putting resources into, especially if you get a lot of Soul Saga shards. Then she sort of gets this ability to sort of put a debuff on enemies and then recover the mana that she used to put that debuff on the enemy if they kill the enemy. So it's kind of net zero mana while also increasing the damage that enemy is taking, which is a little bit more maybe management on the game side than you want to. You don't want to be completely focusing on making sure Misty Knight's debuff is up at all times, but I think she's pretty decent. I kind of like her. She surprised me. I thought she was going to be much worse than when I tried her. But speaking of surprising, let's talk about Falcon. I don't like this guy. He's actually going to go down here in D tier. I think there's maybe some potential in the future for him, but at the moment, I just don't like him. I don't like how often his debuff triggers. I think it's too slow. I don't think his damage output is good and scales very well. And then if you don't have any Soul Sagas in him, he doesn't actually like generate a shield on himself. He just like reduces damage. That's the buff he gives himself. I just don't think he's very good, to be honest with you. Okay, we got two left. Lady Bullseye and Mr. Negative. I think I was wrong. I think there's 31 characters at the moment. Let's talk about Lady Bullseye. I think a lot of people invested in her early on, especially because she's got sort of a great output in damage, and especially for building sort of like a follow-up team, which works because a lot of the free-to-play accessible characters can do follow-up, you know, Psylock, Ekko, and then if you get Spider-Man, right, that's sort of what you're aiming for there. Maybe this is a hot take here, but I am going to put her in C tier. And the reason I'm putting her in crap tier is because I don't like how long she ends up with her skills on your skill bar. So her one skill starts at 5 mana, and then you have to like wait for it to come down to use 2 mana, and that's like one of her big attacks, right? I don't like that. That means it's just got to sit there for a while. And then her other skill, I feel like, is not that useful. She goes invisible. I think it also, if you get Soul Saga on her, some dupes, it will heal her a little bit, and maybe it does some other buffing for her. But it just feels like a waste, and so I never end up using it. Feels like a waste of 2 mana to me, so I never end up using it. So then what'll end up happening is that 2/3 of my skills are just Lady Bullseye skills. And that just clogs up my skill bar. And I don't like that. I think her damage output is fine. And it sort of falls off towards the end game, but not. She's fine in terms of that. I think that is my biggest gripe with her, is that how long her skills sit on my skill bar. It feels like I'm just waiting rather than playing, if that makes sense. Okay. Last but not least, he's not going at the end of D tier here. He doesn't beat Man-Thing. I have Mr. Negative, and I think Mr. Negative is a C tier. He's not that good. I think he has potential, but at the moment, I just don't think he is that good. He's another one of these characters, and I guess I'm biased against them. It seems like his kit is centered around himself and not helping out his team. But his damage is okay, so it kind of makes up for it. So maybe, you know what? Actually, you know what? Here's what I'll do. I'm going to put him there. But his kit is fine. It just sort of centers around himself, and I just don't think there's a place for it at the moment. So you can sort of, in my opinion, hold off on putting resources into him until we get something better. By that time, there might be, you know, somebody who can control buffs and debuffs a lot better than he can. I just don't like him right now. Something more interesting maybe would be if, like, he had basically two sort of offensive and defensive modes, kind of like Captain America, and you know, sort of a risk versus reward situation where in the offensive mode he's like very, very, very squishy, but he's got really high damage. And then some sort of defensive mode, he's maybe, it doesn't have to be a defensive mode where he's just got defense exactly like Captain America, but maybe he's got like more of a support mode where he can kind of buff and, you know, wipe buffs off of enemies, wipe debuffs off of you know, teammates, you know, put buffs out on teammates. I don't know. I think that could be maybe a more interesting kit that sort of plays along with the theme of Mr. Negative, that would make him a little bit more viable. But right now, not great. Okay, that wraps up this tier list, the 1 month tier list. Again, in the description or in the pinned comment, I haven't decided where I'm going to put it yet, there will be sort of a live voting event, and you will be able to go and vote on this exact tier list, or put the pictures there yourself, and we should be able to basically get a community-wide tier list. And I'll probably post that in my Discord, or maybe I'll post it on YouTube or something like that. But that is it from me. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.